Hey, this is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. Well, if you have decided to give up alcohol and are no longer drinking, you are fast becoming part of the majority in this country. In the 70s and 80s, when I was going to college, the vast majority of people drank. About 3/4 of all adults drank regularly. Well, that's been going down quite a bit, and now hovering somewhere close to about half of the adults drink regularly, which means you're no longer going to get the stink eye. People aren't going to look at you weird if you're not drinking. You're pretty close to being in the majority, or at least half the population that are out there. And the number one reason why most people are not drinking is not because they're an alcoholic, but because of health reasons. And there's good reasons for it. There's no positive benefit that comes from drinking. There was a time when we talked about the positive effects of having a glass of wine or two, and we thought that there were some chemicals in there that might be heart healthy. Well, those studies have all been debunked, and the more you look at it, the more you realize there are no health benefits to drinking alcohol. Matter of fact, there's lots of health consequences. It takes the liver at least an hour to clear out just 1 ounce of alcohol out of your system, because frankly, alcohol is a poison and your body wants to get rid of it. And when it is doing that, and that process, it's not doing other things. The liver's not taking care of business and getting you the proper nutrients that you need. I mean, the liver's a major chemical factory, and when it is trying to get rid of alcohol, that's really, frankly, all it is doing at that particular time. Alcohol is inflammatory to the system. It's going to inflame your arteries, increase your blood pressure. You think about the puffiness and swelling that comes that you see after somebody's been drinking heavily. Well, that's just flat out inflammation, and it's negative. So if you want to avoid that, the answer is pretty simple: just don't drink. And if you don't drink alcohol, you don't have those problems. Now, let's break this down a little bit further. If you are a low-carb person, is it possible for you to have some alcohol? Well, it depends. Beer and wine are pretty much out if you're really serious about trying to stay in ketosis or not increase the number of carbs in your system. Beer and wine are just chock full of carbohydrates. Even the low-carb beers still have carbohydrates in them. So those are two that you really want to avoid. One way to win a bar bet, it's kind of fascinating. Most people assume that distilled spirits have carbohydrates in them. And frankly, you have to Google it and show it to them, but most people are frankly rather shocked that a bottle that is, a bourbon is made up of several grains and water, yet it has 0 carbs. And the process of distillation gets rid of the carbohydrates in them. It doesn't mean it's safe, but you're not going to gain carbohydrates if you just drink pure distilled spirits with water or some sort of non-sugary mixer. That does not mean that you get to have pina coladas or margaritas, because those are, those additives to the alcohol are full of sugar. So, if you just keep it, if you want to have a drink, vodka tonic or something like that, you're not going to increase the number of carbs. But if you're trying to lose weight, just keep in mind you are going to be slowing down your progress, because your liver's not going to be able to function properly. They're just empty calories that basically go into fat stores. They are highly inflammatory. And there's other health issues that happen with heavy use of alcohol, so be careful with it. If you've had bariatric surgery, let me warn you very seriously about cross-addiction. About 1/3 of the people that have had bariatric surgery become alcoholics. That is not an indictment. It does not mean that they've created some sort of major physiological change. It just is what it is. And there's speculation. Nobody's done a great in-depth study as to why that happens, but many people think that people that are likely candidates to have bariatric surgery probably have a bad relationship with food that borders on the point of addiction. There's a dopamine spike that comes with eating, ultra-processed sugary foods, and that they lose that. They replace it with alcohol, which gives you a dopamine effect. So there's kind of that addiction process that happens that way. So that is certainly a possibility. In my particular case, what I found with my relationship to alcohol, I was one of these guys that I could drink very heavily or not at all. It didn't make a huge amount of difference. But what happened was when I started drinking again 6 months after having bariatric surgery, my relationship with alcohol changed pretty dramatically because I no longer had a regular stomach, I had a tube. And when I would drink, it would go straight through the tube into my intestines, and it never gave me the same feeling that I used to have. I used to know when I'd had a drink, and I would savor it because it would just kind of stay in the stomach and feel kind of warm. All of a sudden that feeling went away, and it was now going into my intestines, and it would take like 2 or 3 drinks before I actually physically felt like I'd had alcohol in my system. And as a result, my alcohol tolerance went up pretty dramatically, and within a relatively short period of time, I was showing all the tendencies of being a flat-out alcoholic, and it became dangerous. And my face was kind of perpetually puffy, etc. And that was bad. So be very careful with it. It is not something to be trifled with. Remember that at the end of the day, alcohol is doing nothing for you. It is a poison that is dangerous. And that does not mean that I am Mr. Teetotaler, temperance movement, shame on you for drinking. If you want to drink, and you want to remain low carb, then just one distilled beverage with ice and non-carbohydrate mixer, you're an adult, you can make up your own decision. I don't care. I'm just telling you that if, from a health perspective, there's no upside, only downside. But like I said, you're an adult, you can make up your own mind. This is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. If you like this message, please hit like and subscribe. Join this channel of other like-minded folks. I try to put out a couple messages each week. I will talk to you again soon.